In the Web of a Narcissist. My Experiences with Narcissism by Putuagang, Adi Dotinga. Narcissism. A word that increasingly appears in conversations, books, and social media. Yet, I only truly understood what it meant when I experienced it up close and over a long period. This publication is not a scientific treatise, but an honest and profound account of my experiences, observations, and insights, written with the purpose of warning, informing, and above all, healing. What narcissism really is. Narcissism is not vanity or harmless selfishness, as is often thought. It is a deeply rooted personality disorder that manifests in manipulation, a painful lack of empathy, a constant need for admiration, and a structural inability to form genuine, reciprocal connections. A narcissist does not treat others as equals, but as extensions of themselves, pawns on their chessboard. There are different types of narcissism. Some are loud, impressive, and socially charming, the so-called grandiose narcissists. Others are quiet, full of self-pity, and often victim-like, the so-called covert type. I have encountered both. And believe me, the silent variant is no less destructive. On the contrary, the damage is often harder to recognize and acknowledge. How it began. The masks. At first, nothing seems wrong. The narcissist appears caring, attentive, and full of admiration for who you are. You feel seen, loved, and special. It feels as if you've finally met someone who truly understands you. But that is only the mask. Slowly, the outlines of reality begin to shift. Remarks become more critical, corrections more subtle. All for your own good. You start doubting yourself. And that is exactly what the narcissist feeds on. The smaller you feel, the bigger they feel. Because power and control are the true drivers. I've had relationships where I lost myself without realizing it. Friends, partners, even family members, people I trusted and loved, turned out to be mainly focused on themselves. What I felt, thought, or needed only mattered if it could be used to steer or control me. Gaslighting. Subtle sabotage. One of the most exhausting forms of narcissistic abuse is gaslighting. The goal is clear, to make you doubt your own perception and common sense. Phrases like, "I never said that," "You're exaggerating everything," or "You're too sensitive" became almost mantras in my daily life. At some point, I stopped trusting my own feelings, as if my inner compass had been sabotaged. I remember a situation where I set a boundary. "I don't like it when you take things from my house without asking." The response was, "You're making a problem out of everything. You really need to learn to relax." The message was clear. My boundaries were the problem, not the boundary-crossing behavior. The damage, invisible but deep. Narcissistic abuse rarely leaves visible scars, but the inner wounds run deep. Self-doubt, anxiety, shame, chronic stress, depression, or even PTSD can result. You become alienated from your own worth and start seeing yourself through the narcissist's critical eyes as difficult, flawed, or ungrateful. It took me years to realize these were not normal conflicts, but systematic manipulation. That awareness came slowly, through books, therapy sessions, and, above all, recognition among fellow survivors. And I started writing. Writing gave me back control over my story, over my truth. The road to recovery. Recovery begins with recognition. You have to look at the beast in the eye without softening or self-betrayal. That is painful because it means admitting that you were used, sometimes by someone you loved deeply. Next comes detachment, both literal and inner. For me, it meant breaking contact. That was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Loyalty ran deep, but only when I distanced myself could I breathe again. The inner detachment was equally intense. I had to free myself from guilt, from deep-rooted patterns where I always tried to do right by others, even at my own expense. And I had to learn to trust my intuition, relearning to listen to what I had long known inside. Self-insight, therapy, and fellow survivors. Self-awareness and therapy were anchors in the storm for me. My therapist helped me recognize patterns, set boundaries, and above all, be gentle with myself. But contact with fellow survivors was invaluable. People who understood without much explanation, who nodded instead of questioned, who didn't say, "You're exaggerating, but I get you." One fellow survivor once told me, "We are not victims, we are survivors." That phrase touched me deeply, because acknowledging what has been done to you is not a weakness. It is strength. And if you read this and think, "This sounds painfully familiar," know this. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You have been abused. And you are not alone. What I want to share. Listen to your feelings. If something feels wrong, it often is. Trust your intuition, even when it whispers. Do not normalize disrespect. Someone who repeatedly hurts you usually does not mean well. Know that healing is possible. It takes time, sometimes years. But there will come a day when you can breathe freely again. Name it. Give it a name. As long as it remains unnamed, you cannot free yourself from it. Finally, love is not a weapon. A narcissist uses love both as bait and as a weapon. But love that breaks you down is not love. Love is gentle, supportive, and liberating. Not a dagger wrapped in velvet. I am not bitter. I am awake. And I write this not out of revenge, but out of the wish that you, whoever you are, do not lose yourself in the whirlpool of someone else's emptiness. Don't let anyone teach you to doubt yourself. You are valuable. You deserve to exist. Unconditionally, with love and clarity, Adi Dotinga. You can purchase this book at bookmundo.com or in any other bookstore.